In the latest twists and turns of CBS's The Bold and the Beautiful on Wednesday, September 17th, in the relentless whirlwind that defines The Bold and the Beautiful. Wednesday's developments didn't just shake the ground beneath the Forrester family, they cracked it wide open. Just as the fury over Luna's deception reached a breaking point, and tensions between Lee, Will, and Bill threatened to explode beyond control. A ghost from the past re-emerged with more than just secrets. Poppy returned. Long presumed to have vanished under the weight of scandal or shame, Poppy's absence was no retreat, it was a calculated maneuver. A tactical silence. Her return wasn't marked by apologies or explanations. Instead, she came armed with power. Cold, clinical, undeniable power in the form of sealed medical files and evidence that could change everything. Poppy's reappearance at Forrester Creations wasn't quiet. She walked through the doors not as a fugitive, not as a disgraced relative trying to salvage what remained of her family name, but as a negotiator. The same woman who once faded into the shadows now stood firmly in the center of the storm, holding documentation that could turn the narrative of Luna and Lee upside down. What she offered wasn't just leverage, it was ammunition. The kind that could destabilize reputations, unravel carefully curated lies, and expose deeply buried motives. The file she carried was thick, stamped, official. More than that, it was damning. Inside were record psychiatric evaluations, lab tests, treatment notes that shed new light on the night Will's life was changed. Notes that hinted Luna may not have acted alone, may not have been entirely lucid, may not have even known what she was doing. These weren't excuses, and Poppy wasn't offering any. What she had, she said, was the truth, and she was ready to trade. Her terms were clear. Forrester Creations would give Luna public stage, a moment to reclaim her name. An opportunity to be seen not as a predator, but as a person caught in the crossfire of manipulation and neglect. In return, Poppy would grant access to the documentation, every line, every date, every prescription and diagnosis that could clarify what really happened. She wasn't begging for forgiveness. She was offering clarity for spectacle, redemption in exchange for visibility. She dared FC to be better than the secrets they kept. The room was split. Rich was hesitant. Brooke was furious. Steffi saw a trap. Thomas, ever the tactician, recognized the move for what it was, a master stroke. But what no one expected was who stood beside Poppy, not a lawyer, not a doctor, but Sheila Carter. Yes, that Sheila. The unpredictable, dangerous, perpetually self-serving Sheila. And yet, in this twisted turn of events, she stood beside Poppy like an advisor, a reluctant counselor. Not because she wanted to help Luna, but because she saw the value in the chaos. Sheila had always thrived in the shadows of scandal, and this one had the potential to burn through multiple households if handled with the right touch. Or the wrong one. Sheila's presence set the room on edge. Katie's voice rose first, accusing her of manipulating yet another vulnerable situation. Lee exploded next, demanding that Sheila leave the property immediately. But Sheila stayed silent. She didn't need to speak, the weight of her presence was enough. And when Poppy revealed that Sheila had quietly helped her compile the documentation using her connections, her access, her infamous cunning, the room erupted. Suddenly the lines between ally and enemy, truth and spin, blurred completely. But Poppy wasn't finished. She turned directly to Bill, looking him in the eye with a calm intensity that silenced the room. She asked him what he truly wanted. Justice, revenge, or clarity. Would he rather let his son be defined by trauma, or would he consider that Luna's actions might have been influenced by years of untreated trauma, suppressed memories, and medication tampering? Because that's what the documents revealed. A disturbing pattern. A subtle but persistent manipulation not just of Luna's choices, but of her mental health itself. Evidence that someone had tampered with Luna's prescriptions, altered her dosages, left her vulnerable to suggestion and unable to consent clearly to anything. And the name on the tampering report. Lee. The very woman who had choked Luna in a fit of rage. The aunt who had declared Luna irredeemable. According to the files, Lee had once signed off on psychiatric treatments that were later deemed unethical. The timeline matched too perfectly to be coincidence. There were questions about motive, questions about control, questions about whether Luna had been a patient or a pawn. Suddenly, the story shifted again. Luna wasn't just a victim of her own choices. She might have been a victim of a broader, more insidious agenda. The impact was immediate. Bill's face changed. The fury that had been driving him began to twist into something more uncertain. Katie demanded answers from Lee, who began to falter. Her defenses cracked. She denied everything, but the weight of the documents was too much. The room watched her unravel. Sheila's eyes never left her. Neither did Poppy's. The Forrester board was thrown into turmoil. Rich called an emergency meeting to determine whether or not to accept Poppy's offer. On one hand, they could expose Lee's potential malpractice, shield Luna from total public destruction, and possibly regain control of the narrative. On the other, they risked inviting chaos, letting Sheila inch closer to their inner circle, and exposing their own internal fractures to the public eye. But in a show where image is everything, Poppy's deal started to look like the only viable option. Backstage, Luna was reeling. She had been silent for days, drowning in guilt and fear. But when she learned what her mother had done, what Lee may have done, the silence broke. She demanded to see the documents herself. She wanted to know the truth. She wanted to face Will. She didn't want to hide anymore. This wasn't about excuses. It was about facing consequences, but only the right ones. Not the narrative spun by Lee or the silence imposed by the Forresters. She wanted her voice back. Will, meanwhile, was watching from the sidelines, torn between betrayal and confusion. The trauma hadn't faded. The pain hadn't dulled. But for the first time, he was being asked to reconsider the story he'd come to believe. Had Luna known what she was doing? Had she been herself? Could he even trust what he remembered? These questions weighed heavily, and when he saw the medical records, saw the gaps, the discrepancies, the pattern of negligence, something in him shifted. The fury began to cool. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But doubt. And doubt was the first crack in the wall that had kept Luna out. As the episode barreled toward its final act, the Forresters were left with a decision. Accept Poppy's deal and let Luna speak her truth in a public forum, with full backing from Forrester PR. Or reject it and risk everything, including the exposure of Lee's possible involvement in a years-long deception. The risk was monumental. The fallout potentially catastrophic. But the opportunity was real. And Poppy, standing tall, waited for their answer. Sheila, ever the observer, smiled faintly. She had done her part. For now. But she knew the game was only beginning. With every secret revealed, a new one rose to take its place. And as Luna prepared to take the stage, not just to defend herself, but to reclaim her voice, her truth, her sanity, the world of the bold and the beautiful stood at the brink of yet another war. Family against family. Truth against legacy. Pain against power. And not everyone would survive the reckoning to come. Viewers were thrown into a whirlwind of emotions as deep-seated secrets, unresolved tensions, and shocking confrontations unfolded in the lives of the Forrester family and their allies. The drama that had been quietly building under the surface for weeks reached a fever pitch, with actions that would forever alter relationships and reputations. The central theme of the day's episode revolved around the aftermath of a violent betrayal, the uncovering of long-hidden truths, and the reckoning that followed. The episode opened with one of the most intense and emotional moments in recent memory as Will Crew Morrow and Bill Don Diamond worked together to intervene and protect Luna. Lisa Yamato from an attack by Lee Naomi Matsuda. Lee, enraged by the revelation that Luna had been responsible for a traumatic and deceitful night in the past, let her anger boil over in a violent confrontation. It was a moment that brought to the forefront the raw emotions and the lengths to which people would go to seek justice or revenge. But while Will and Bill attempted to de-escalate the situation, the truth of Luna's actions was far from being resolved. The day's episode was a culmination of events that had been brewing for some time. centered around the startling revelation that Luna had manipulated and deceived Will into thinking he had slept with Electra Linnea Grace, when in fact, it was Luna in disguise. This betrayal shook Will to his core, as he spent days trying to piece together the events that had transpired when he had stayed at Deacon Sean Kanan house. What had initially seemed like a confused memory soon turned into a horrifying realization. Luna had raped him that night. The fact that this horrific act was disguised behind a mask made the betrayal even worse, and the psychological toll it took on Will was unimaginable. Will's journey of self-discovery and anguish culminated in a raw and emotional conversation with his mother, Katie Heather Tom, and his father, Bill. Upon hearing the full extent of Luna's betrayal, Katie and Bill were left reeling with anger and disbelief. Their protective instincts as parents took over, and they were determined to ensure that Luna would face the consequences of her actions. It was clear that the family would not let this go unnoticed, and they prepared for a confrontation that would not only deal with Luna's actions but also shed light on the larger web of lies and deceit that had been spun around them. The ensuing confrontation between the Forresters and Luna was nothing short of explosive. As emotions ran high, Lee's anger reached a boiling point, and she physically confronted Luna, choking her in a fit of rage while accusing her of being a wicked and manipulative person. The intensity of the moment left everyone in the room shocked, with Will looking on helplessly as his family tried to bring some form of justice to an unforgivable situation. It was clear that the tension between the two women was only going to escalate from here, and the consequences of Luna's actions would continue to reverberate through the family dynamic. As the dust began to settle, it became evident that the events of that fateful night were far from isolated. Luna's actions were just the tip of the iceberg, and the web of deceit that had been spun in the Forrester family's midst was beginning to unravel. Secrets that had been buried deep were slowly emerging into the light, and with each new revelation, the trust between family members seemed to erode further. Love and loyalty were tested in ways that no one had anticipated, and the Forresters' once strong bond began to show signs of fracture. The ramifications of Luna's actions reached far beyond the immediate family. The ripple effect of her betrayal would cause chaos across Los Angeles, with every character in the show feeling the impact. The storyline promised even more devastating turns, as secrets about other characters came to light, revealing the depths of manipulation and control that had been hidden for so long. The episode made it clear that the Forresters would face not only personal turmoil, but also a full-on battle to protect their name, their business, and their family legacy. As the confrontation came to an end, it was impossible to ignore the fact that this was just the beginning. The road ahead for the Forrester family would be filled with unexpected twists, heart-wrenching decisions, and devastating betrayals. While the episode had dealt with Luna's actions head-on, it left viewers with a sense that more shocking revelations were on the horizon. What would be the ultimate consequence for Luna's actions? Could the Forresters ever rebuild the trust that had been shattered? And what other secrets were still waiting to be exposed? For fans of the bold and the beautiful, the answers to these questions would come in due time. But one thing was certain: the Forrester family would never be the same again. The deep divisions caused by Luna's betrayal would reverberate throughout every aspect of their lives, and the impact would be felt for many more episodes to come. The tension between family loyalty and personal betrayal, love and revenge, was far from over. The next chapter in this gripping saga would prove to be even more explosive than anything that had come before. Stay tuned for the next episode, as the Forrester family braces for the storm that is about to hit.